priority to ranking members who had to go and chair their committees.
Yes.
And chairman, well, I'm not aware if there are any chairman of committees on our side, but you did indicate you'd give priority to the ranking members.
Yes,
and we're accommodating that. So I don't see anything
Very well.
out of the way in this.
Now let's continue. Yes, to conclude your questioning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Honorable nominee, before the break, I was making reference to the budget statement you presented before this House on 13th November 2020, in which you promised categorically that 600-bed, 600-bed Kayaye hostel was to start in December. I took time to look at this year's budget and realized that it wasn't captured in this year's budget. My question is, are you really committed to this project? And if you are, what is the current status of that project? Because the Kayaye are still looking forward to this very important social intervention.
Well, what is that? Yeah, the nominates were waiting for you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, let me check and get back to you with this as to how we have we intend to do that or realign that. So we will do that, and if it needs to be resolved, I think the media review might be a way in which we would accommodate that. I mean, I think the issue of the wealth status of Kayaye is important to us. But, you know, the challenge really, as I see it, with regards to our investment in the north, such as irrigation and agriculture, etc., is truly to reverse this trend. I don't think it's sustainable for us to be encouraging that. There are just too many human rights abuses. And the challenge that we have, I remember the president saying, you know, you almost have an imaginary line between Brown and Hafo coming through Volta, and we can't continue to create a country with these two divisions. So the question is, how do you turn the north not into the backwater of Ghana, but actually a destination? And this is where the irrigation issues that we are contemplating, the financing that we got from AFDB for larger farms are doing, the issue of international airport, so that suddenly you have a certain reversal. And I think that really strategically is what we should be looking at. And that is on the agenda for our Obatampa project in terms of investment that we are looking to the north. But I'll certainly look at this issue, and if we have neglected to do it, then to consider it in our half-year review.
Honourable Minister, that is very, very key, given the fact that what you just described would pass for either a medium-term or a long-term means of addressing the problem. As we speak today, there are Kayaye in and around Medina Market, there are Kayaye at Abu Blushi Market. They are giving birth to kids who are living in the same condition. So the inequality and the plight of this vulnerable group is so key. And it is said that if you want to measure a country's growth, you should also look at how they treat their most vulnerable populace. And I think these people need some closer attention when you eventually get a nod.
No, thank you very much. I think, Mr. Chairman, when you look at the MPP as a right to center government, the key issues are human capital. As much as you talk about it, it's the people that do that. And we as a government has invested in human capital, I believe, more than any other government. When you look at the free SHS, you look at planting for food, you look at LEAP, you look at school feeding, clearly that suggests a government with keen empathy to build its future. So we are no less, concerned about that. And sometimes I feel that people are preaching to us while the statistics really indicate that our concern, budget allocation to these areas have been greater than most people.
Yes. John Kuma, you wanted to ask a question relating to?
I wanted to provide some information on the KIA project and to assist the nominee.
Well, if you couch it in such a way as that to a question, then fine. Otherwise, that's for information. You share it before here.
Okay, so, but once the question has been answered, it was under the Ministry of Business Development, and an award for the construction of the project was done. The problem was...
Asking whether he's aware.
Yeah, okay. So, Honorable Minister, were you aware that the 600-bed capacity of the KIA project was awarded to a contractor under the then Ministry of Business Development? But the problem, the challenge was to do with the land. The site for the land was around Kolebu traffic light. Let me finish. So I'm laying the foundation. The contention between AMA and Kolebu Teaching Hospital had to do with ownership of the land. So because...
As Honorable Minister, are you aware that the project for the construction of the hostel being awarded? Are you aware?
The KIA hostel.
Mr. Chairman, I have not read the handover notes for that, but it seems encouraging because it's leading to an identification of a contractor, the usual bickering as to who owns land, and therefore maybe there might be an easier solution than we think. So what is the status of...
Will you intervene between Kolebu and AMA to ensure that an acceptable location of land or site is identified so that the project can be carried out?
I think I'll follow up. Certainly this is Ministry of Works and Housing as an arbiter, and therefore we would encourage that to be done, given our own level of empathy with these issues. Thank you.
Yes. How are you doing? Yes, Honorable Ayaga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my three questions will focus on three areas. The first will focus on the PDS transaction, which has to do with the energy sector and the MCC, Millennium Challenge Corporation, and the effort to find private sector partners to intervene in the management of the retailing of electricity by ECG. The story is well known, and so this question doesn't give me the opportunity to repeat all the material facts which I believe all of us are aware of. But your own involvement as the finance minister towards the tail end of the transaction in trying to get the shares of the Ghanaian participants in the consortium to a special purpose vehicle. The resistance thereafter, and so many other things, the discovery that the guarantee which formed the basis of the transfer of the retailing infrastructure of ECG to the consortium, the concessionaires, the discovery that it was fake, and subsequently the decision of government to suspend the entire transaction. Ultimately, an announcement by the American government that the matter be independently investigated. We're still not aware of the conclusion of that investigation. But my real question is, in the process, Mr. Nominee, we lost an opportunity. We lost an opportunity to bring in over $500 million of private sector capital, $580 million of private sector capital to support ECG to be more efficient. And so I think that we've had to begin to fund that aspect of ECG's job that has led to a ballooning of our debt, and I believe some of the taxes that we're having to introduce has some bearing on the failure of that transaction. The question really is, you were finance minister, and your handling of a transaction led us to lose an opportunity to be able to gain that kind of investment. You want to continue as finance minister. Why should we be very confident?
Thank you very much indeed. I think that's an excellent question. I think really we should premise this whole situation with an asset base and a security issue that is worth maybe $4 billion or dollars or so in terms of the value of what we were transferring. Now it is foolhardy when you realize that the conditions precedent, the conditions subsequent, and therefore ability for the concessionaire has a fake transaction in the middle, with the Americans also thinking that we can go through. First of all, let us understand that the transaction had begun before we came into government. The president looked at it. It's really a utility entity, 25-year concession, etc., where literally after you set good rates, profitability is assured. The president did not see any magic wand in which a foreign entity should have 80% of the value and the Ghanaians, you have 20. So immediately he moved that to 51 for Ghanaians and 49 and for foreigners. There was a clear feeling that the Americans will not support that. He was insistent to do that. So that was right. Then we went on. Yes, I did write a letter in which we were insisting that there should be a special purpose vehicle to hold the Ghanaian shares. Because if they held those shares individually, it would have been easy for the foreign company to align with one shareholder, and then the whole basis of maintaining this thing as Ghanaian-led will not happen. There were, I think, 3 companies left, BSC, Meralco, and EDF from France. BSC was disqualified on the basis of non-disclosure. It was a Chinese firm, American money. EDF, I think, was not happy with the Ghanaian dominance of that. And then Meralco turning into BTS had their Ghanaian shareholders. So I'm not sure whether characterizing it as a lost opportunity when you know that you are at the precipice and there's something wrong and you fail to have the courage to be able to pull back to fight another day. I think you can maybe even link it to the issue of the banking crisis where the asset quality reviews were done. It was clear that the banks were going to collapse and there was a lack of resolve in being able to do that. So a certain boldness, and I think government should be praised to know that even at whatever level or whatever time an incident occurs, that will be prejudicial to the protection of our assets, we pull back. And we haven't done anything in 2020 because 2020 really is not the year to resolve such issues. So the issue is postponement, Mr. Chairman, and not a lost opportunity. And I dare say that with the Obatampa program and the whole reorientation of invitation of outsiders to come into the private sector space, we stand to do a better transaction in future.
Chairman, it looks like the nominee doesn't trust us enough to take our water. Is he, just to, I've been taking my water because, so just to, if he can get some more water or he brings his own. I've been taking my water.
Oh, please.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, well, we take water once in a while just to be, just to be sure that he's safe to take our water.
Very well. And Honorable, please continue.
Yes, he's safe to take our water.
Mr. Minister Nominee, the question really is, you had absolute control over the management of the transaction, i.e. Government of Ghana and MCC Corporation, which was passed pursuant an act of Parliament of Ghana, a subsidiary. You took over the project. You decided to realign the shareholding. Changing it from 49-51 is definitely praiseworthy. So you were praised for doing that. But you haven't been able to implement the transaction. That's the point. Why would we praise you? Because a transaction that you were absolutely in control of ran into a crisis, threatened to lose as a strategic asset, and you pulled the plug, and then you want us to praise you. How is that?
Mr. Chairman, I'm a little confused. I'm a little confused because I think your deep knowledge of this transaction asserted that there was something fake about the guarantee that was coming. So as you look at such a strategic asset, security implications, it's, you put runners on the field and one jump starts and run and you say that you, the referee, have failed. I don't know that. I think it should be quite clear, as you said, that yes, we changed it from 80 to 51, and that was a good thing for us. We looked at the non-compliance of the conditions subsequent, and it wasn't clear that it was going to happen. And we had the courage to pull. I think that is good. Do we have time to redo it? Yes. Is the 580 million or more lost? We don't know that for a fact. I think we are in a better situation to reassess and come back to market. So that would be my characterization of a government that really protects its assets.
Now I have one on PDS. Chairman, if you tolerated me, Minister, PDS, just as the Honorable Ayarga have observed, we lost a golden opportunity to allow for private participation in the operations of ECG and to allow for new impetus that allowed for more efficiency in the delivery of their services, apart from the $190 million that are lost. My follow-up is to, you have an idea what the state of the PDS account is and how much is in the account and whether there's been any reconciliation of the account with PDS. Then related to Chairman is, did you ever officially write to PDS and give them an opportunity to correct any of the matters that were brought to your attention relating to fraud in terms of the bank guarantee? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, the issues of PDS to a certain degree are in court. And I'm sure we will resolve those, at the appropriate time. But I think we did the right thing. I'm not sure that any Ghanaian should be having much empathy for them not being able to meet their conditions subsequent. And that is a good thing that we have it back in our fold to be able to come back another day in the way with the learnings that we have had and going forward.
Yeah. Mr. Nominee, similarly, in the famously Ajapa deal, the gold royalties monetization transaction, the gold royalties monetization transaction, similarly, I say similarly because that is also a concept and a policy which you inherited from the previous regime and tried to actualize, and it fell through. It fell through because the president decided not to pursue the transaction again. When it has been discussed, it tends to revolve around an opinion written by Martin Amidu, and you've variously tried to say, look, Martin's opinion was written without regard to the right of your team to a fair hearing on the issues that he tried to raise. Granted that. But ultimately, the president decided not to pursue the transaction. Is at that time, president decided not to pursue the transaction at that time, even though he's announced again that we should revisit the transaction. Now, with that failure again to implement an instrument that from the analysis was going to likely raise about $1 billion for us, front-loaded for investment and then later on to be recovered through our shares in the various mining companies. With that failure again, why should you continue as finance minister?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I think I take a great reservation with the issue of failure when the honorable member knows the facts of why there's a change in direction. I don't think we should encourage that. Besides, with regards to Ejapa, I think we have made it clear that the issue of the use of our resources have been less than optimal. Mr. Chairman, we know that foreign people are giving concessions. They are able to put a red herring together and raise money on international markets and not necessarily even bring those resources to Ghana. Why should Ghana not do that? It's a fundamental question. Now the question then is, if we agree that we are moving into this equity space, what is the process that we take? The president is saying that we should go to the AG and resubmit that. And so we as a nation should really discuss, these type of leveraging transactions which are to our benefit and supports a diversification from that. So it is not a failure. I think you also alluded rather softly to, well, you did not have a fair trial. I think that's fundamental to human rights. And there's no way this House should even tolerate accepting and then quoting from that when the rights of Ghanaians have not been put in there. And you put a document of that there to create hatred and create a sense of insecurity for all of us. And that is wrong. I think we should mind our words, because words do matter, and it can lead to an erosion of aspiration for our people, and feel that certain things that we should begin to contemplate to be able to... Look, imagine that we have this royalties company, which maybe in 20, 30 years becomes a $30 billion company. We have 49% or 51 or 52%, whatever, north of 50% of it. Imagine putting that balance sheet to the Bank of Ghana. What then happens? You immediately, literally have a reserve currency, which changes your economies. This whole issue of currency depreciation, etc. And we have these assets sitting because the language that we have as a nation does not embolden anyone to be able to examine these things. I think that's important. We cannot go on this way, and we need to find a way. Yes, if I did not consult chiefs or etc., let's do that. If Parliament really went through the MEF Act in a good way, for them, if we read the Hansard, it was a very spirited debate in which we got the Act. Now, if we are talking about agreements that supposedly were too fast, well, that's a different issue. Okay? If you talk about Jersey and why are you in Jersey, there are reasons for that. Talo, Vodafone, etc. are there. So those can be cured. But let's not kill the possibility of us as a nation rising beyond others. So I really beg to differ on the characterization of failure on major transactions that will send our country forward.
My last question, Mr. Chairman. My last question. You have been extolling your performance starting from Kantamanto and working with partners to build financial institution that today is managing close to $1 billion worth of resources. You are finance minister. I mean, you were finance minister for 4 years, and you're seeking to become finance minister again. And that financial institution has featured in a number of transactions in which the government is involved. It started featuring even before you became finance minister, granted, under most governments. And now you are finance minister, and that financial institution continues to feature in major financial transactions, especially now that we are borrowing a lot. We are borrowing a lot from the international financial market, and that institution, data bank, is involved enormously in the process. People have raised questions about conflict of interest. Constitution frowns on conflict of interest, and we public officers position ourselves in such a way that our personal interests conflict with our public responsibilities. Can you brief us on how you are managing your relationship with the financial institution in such a way that the perception of a likelihood of conflict of interest is demystified and addressed in people's minds?
Yeah. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I think it's it's a problem that, of course, may be taken advantage of, or you may look at the minister and know that such is not the way in which he operates. But I think in the end, Honorable Chair, I think it's up to Parliament to get our Public Services Act or something passed so that there's clarity on that. U.S. investment bankers are usually chosen as Treasury secretaries, etc. So the problem will continue in which expertise outside of the political cycle may be invited to the finance ministry, and we need to protect and encourage such international expertise. I suspect if we look at what the ministry has done with regards to enhancing our ratings, reducing the interest rates when we go to the Eurobond market, that's just phenomenal savings that are relevant. So I think it's a responsibility of the House to really protect that ministry and encourage experts to participate. But the issue that you have raised, for example, if Parliament was telling the world that, look, these guys have been doing this since 2007, first to do it, they've done it with every government, then it's a non-issue. Now, if somebody wants to politicize it, of course it's an issue, but I think that the truth of the matter and the idea of supporting indigenous Ghanaian firms, the idea of encouraging people with expertise to come in government should be front and center as we look at this, or as we may be denying the nation some expertise that may be relevant to the future. But yes, in my situation, I truly do not engage in these sort of procurement transactions as we think, broadly on the economic freedom, the space for people, our international relationship to make sure that we get the best deal. So I can give you my commitment as to what we do. I certainly have not been on the boards of data banks since maybe 2014 or 2012, retired from that. But, I think we built two great companies and would encourage people to do that.
Very well. We've done 2 hours now. We'll bring proceedings, we'll suspend proceedings. We'll resume in 2 hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Right in the city of Accra, 30 minutes drive from the Kotoka International Airport, the Knightsbridge is Africa's first affordable luxury housing. The 1, 2 and 3 bedroom luxury apartments feature a